Back to another threat. That oil slick is getting bigger by the minute with no signs of stopping. And people along the coast from Texas to Florida are bracing for the oil spill's landfall. The sheen on top of the water is already making its way through delicate areas for fishing and other outdoor activities. In Alabama on Dauphin Island, it's one of the first places that authorities expect to get hit. That's where Jonathan Seri has been standing by reporting for us live. Jonathan, any sign if the oil has reached where you are, and what is the expected reaction and impact going to be?
Well, it hasn't reached where I am just yet. If you look behind me, you can see some recreational fishers there trying to take advantage of what many people on the island believe may be the last weekend of fishing before this spill arrives. Meanwhile, some new information crossing the wires that U.S. officials have closed commercial and recreational fishing in federal waters for a minimum of 10 days. These are areas already affected by the oil spill. So certainly the commercial fishing industry already beginning to feel the impact of this oil spill. And, you know, it's all interrelated. Earlier today, we spoke with the woman who owns the Lighthouse Bakery here on Dauphin Island, and she buys her seafood, of course, from commercial fishermen to make her famous crab meat omelets. And obviously, it's going to take a toll on that. And she's also seeing visitors, vacation rentals to the island drying up, and therefore some of her customer base. People already canceling their vacations in advance, anticipating the oil spill will arrive within the next couple days or so, Eric.
Well, it is so heartbreaking, potentially, and the economy also relies on those offshore platforms. What's the opinion now that this has happened there about those?
There really is mixed opinion, and in fact, over my shoulder here, you can see one of those drilling platforms. This is a platform where they drill for natural gas. They don't allow oil drilling here on Mobile Bay, but of course, nearby out in the Gulf of Mexico, plenty of oil platforms. And both forms of drilling employ literally thousands of Gulf Coast residents. And so there is a lot of support for the industry. At the same time, there's a lot of anger. Some folks here on the island are saying that BP in particular, but oil companies in general, should have invested more in technology that might have prevented this spill. At the same time, going back to the owner of the bakery that I talked to this morning, she said that any calls to restrict oil drilling at this point would be a bad idea, because you have other countries out there drilling. You have China, you have Russia, you have other countries. And so if America restricts the oil drilling that it is involved with, it puts this nation at a competitive disadvantage. So really, you're hearing both sides on the island as a result of this spill.
Yeah, and all Americans' hearts go out to the residents of the Gulf facing what they could potentially be facing over the coming weeks. Jonathan Seri, live in Dauphin Island. Thanks, Jonathan. Well, President Obama says that the platform's owner, BP, will ultimately pay for the Gulf cleanup. But right now, it's the U.S. military doing a lot of the work. The Pentagon stepped in after other similar disasters, including the Exxon Valdez back in 1989. Lieutenant General of the Air Force Tom McInerney, he's a former assistant chief of staff for the U.S. Air Force and a Fox News analyst and an old friend, and joins us now. And he led the Defense Department's efforts back then. General, welcome.
Thanks, Eric.
Yeah, you led the Valdez efforts in the cleanup 21 years ago. How would you compare what you went through to what they face now?
Well, a lot of the rules in that were determined from the experience we got from Exxon Valdez. Secretary Sam Skinner, who's Jane's father, was really instrumental in the rules that were laid down, and which everybody now understands that British Petroleum is responsible for the cleanup. Any military support, any Coast Guard support, any U.S. government or state support will be paid for by British Petroleum. That's a very important point. Now, some of the things that I think that need to be done is they need a better command and control system, particularly the way the disinfectants are breaking up the oil spill so you don't have huge globs. It's light crude versus we had a heavy crude up in Alaska. So you're going to have more different oil spills moving around that you want to have a continuous picture of where they are. I have talked about on the air, Eric, about using some of the new technology that we didn't have when I was up there. For instance, the Global Hawk, which is an unmanned aerial surveillance aircraft that flies at 60,000 feet, but it has infrared, it has electro-optical TV, and it has radar. And so it can monitor what's going on out in the Gulf continuously, and it can fly upwards of 36 hours and could give that kind of electronic picture to Admiral Tad Allen, who's down in Houston, I believe, at the command center down there. That's very important. Well, it also will help BP.
General, bottom line, in the Valdez, that was a ship, and the oil, the heavy crude gushed out. This thing's not stopping. This thing is going and going and going. They got to get down 5,000 feet, maybe get another pipe to push some cement in that 7-inch hole to stop it. It ain't stopping. So how do they get that to stop, or at least try and contain it in a better manner than we could have an ecological disaster?
Yeah, well, Eric, that's not mine, and I don't think it's the U.S. military to determine it. The oil people will determine that. But what the Defense Department can do, you don't want them on the beaches cleaning up. We made that determination during Exxon Valdez. BP should hire people to do that. BP should hire the fishermen down there and use their boats so they can go out and skim the oil and do a whole host of other things, lay boom. And so that can help the economy and also help BP. Don't put the military to doing that. But there are certain aspects that the military can help. Now, you're spot on when you say it's a different problem, because we knew exactly where the Exxon Valdez, where the oil was coming from, and we're able to seal that and stop that pretty quick. Here you have a problem that is right now beyond our technology as I see it, and so we're going to have to get lucky to kind of stop that. But what we can do is help them to determine where that oil spill is going, and that's very important to minimize the ecological conditions to both the shoreline and to the fisheries.
Bottom line, you think this will eventually, obviously, somehow be cleaned up and they'll eventually get back to normal?
Oh, yeah, they eventually do that, but this one's going to take months, because unless they can get that thing turned off, if they can get it turned off within the next 3 weeks, they'll be able to clean it up fairly well. As has been pointed out earlier today, the bad weather has in fact been helpful, because it's breaking up the oil spill, breaking up the oil, and that's helpful, that high energy, and so that's helpful. The water's warmer, but it's going to take, look, they're still cleaning up from Exxon Valdez. It's still in the environment up there.
Yep, and they talk about potentially long range, maybe 3 months on this one, so hopefully they'll be able to stop it sooner than that. Lieutenant General.
Big challenge.
Yep, Tom McInerney, thank you so much. Good to see you, and for your
Thanks,
insight
Eric.
from your experience. Thank you. Jamie.